Good morning. My name is Ellen Kokinda. I am the staff hearing officer. I'm going to open up the meeting for August 25th, 2021. We are going to start with preliminary matters and any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of X agenda items. I have not received any. So I can go on to preliminary matters number 2, announcements and appeals. I do have an announcement this week of the staff hearing officer decision on a coastal development permit for a project at 137 Mohawk Road. This is PLN 2021-00246. The project consists of a proposal to construct a new one-story, approximately 1,198 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit at the northwest corner of the lot. Additional site improvements include approximately 1,410 square feet of permeable surfaces to create a patio, walkway, and new uncovered parking space for the primary residence. The project includes demolition of an existing storage area behind the garage and of a 48 square foot garden shed, as well as removal or transplanting of 4 small olive trees located within 2 to 3 feet of the ADU footprint. The site is currently developed with a 1-story, 921 square foot single unit residence with a 257 square foot attached single car garage. So the discretionary application required for this project is a coastal development permit to allow the proposed development in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. So pursuant to state law, public hearings are not allowed for a coastal development permit for accessory dwelling units. I can take into account written public comment, but there's no public hearing associated with this particular project. And I can confirm that I did not receive any written comment on this project. I read the staff report and I had a chance to go out on site. And it's a fairly straightforward project in terms of that it's a new construction. It conforms to all the zoning regulations under Title 28. I did notice upon leaving the site and looking at the plans again, that there's the proposed driveway is going to be extended to accommodate a second uncovered parking spot. And there's an existing pepper tree there. So I did request for more consultation from the city's urban forestry director to superintendent to get some information on that. But I can say that I'm comfortable making the findings that are outlined in the staff report, that the accessory dwelling unit is consistent with the policies of the California Coastal Act, and that it's not going to result in any kind of adverse effects to coastal resources, including public views or public access to the coast or any kind of coastal bluff erosion, and that by creating that second parking space on site, that it'll be able to accommodate parking for the primary residence. Secondly, I can say that this accessory dwelling unit is consistent with all the applicable city policies in the local coastal plan, and that it's compatible with the surrounding development. And again, it won't impact any kind of public views. My approval does come with conditions that are outlined in the staff report. And because of that pepper tree, I am going to add one more additional measure for tree protection to make sure that the pepper tree is not impacted or is not severely impacted in the development of that driveway. So I will be adding a condition that an arborist report is required. So prior to building permit issue, the owner shall retain a qualified arborist to submit an arborist report to be reviewed and approved by planning staff. And this is just a way to establish the criteria to ensure protection and survival of that existing pepper tree. And again, this is the pepper tree located in the front setback adjacent to the proposed driveway. And at a minimum, the arborist report shall include guidance on the roots to be cut or preserved, any kind of protection measures during excavation. and monitoring efforts by a qualified arborist. And the monitoring efforts are only if the arborist recommends that's necessary. So to be determined in the report. And that the plans just need to be, that report needs to be reproduced on the plans and then implemented in the field. As part of that, just to ensure that the measures are followed, I'm also adding one small condition that there be a pre-construction conference, just a pre-consultation meeting with the general contractor, the certified arborist, and planning division, a staff member with the property owner, just to make sure that everybody understands the requirements and the recommendations for that. So thank you for the urban forestry superintendent, just to clarify that. But otherwise, I can approve this project with those conditions, and we can go ahead and move on to the next item. Which is going to be, I haven't had any kind of announcements or any other announcements or no appeals. At this time, I do need to take public comment on matters that are not on today's agenda. So I can go ahead and open up public comment on that. So if you're a member of the public and you wish to speak on items not on this particular agenda, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. A red arrow facing down indicates a raised hand, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. Let me just verify. If the moment I don't have anyone raising their hands, and I can go ahead and close public comment on this item. And now we can go into the bulk of our agenda and look over Project A. So public comments closed on that. And Will, did you have a question or? Okay, just checking. All right, so we have, our first project is 520 East Yananali Street. This project consists of demolition of 4 existing buildings totaling approximately 2,463 square feet, including all electrical equipment contained therein, and construction of 5 new electrical buildings totaling approximately 4,201 square feet. A new waste gas flare, stormwater remediation infrastructure, and new utility infrastructure for the existing wastewater plant. The project has been designed to replace or enhance existing El Estero Water Resource Center plant operations while not increasing overall plant capacity. New buildings are not meant for human occupation except for maintenance of equipment. 8 trees are proposed for removal, as well as 4 parking spaces to accommodate the new buildings. The parcels are zoned OM1 SD3 and are located in the appealable jurisdiction and non-appealable jurisdictions of the coastal zone. All work is proposed within the appealable jurisdiction. So the discretionary applications required for this project are a coastal development permit to allow the proposed development in the appealable jurisdiction of the city's coastal zone. And 2, it's a development plan for approximately 1,738 square feet of net new non-residential square footage. Okay, so today we have Stephanie Swanson from staff, who's going to be presenting the staff report, and then we will have Philip Maldonado from Public Works to follow up with the applicant presentation. So Stephanie, if you'd like to go first, and please go ahead and kick us off.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kokinda. Will, if you can open up in the folder, there's a JPEG that's just called site plan. There it is. Zoom in a little bit. Okay, so we are talking about 520 East Yananali. It's comprised of 3 APNs that total 633,798 square feet, and it houses the El Estero Water Resource Center in the city's coastal zone. The parcels are zoned OM1/SD3, and El Estero is a wastewater treatment facility. It was originally constructed in 1951 before the OM1 zone required a conditional use permit for such facilities. So if this were to be constructed brand new today, it would need a conditional use permit. The proposed project includes demolition of existing electrical buildings and replacement of those buildings with new ones, along with utility and stormwater upgrades for the site and a new gas flare. But this does not constitute an expansion of use or capacity for the facility, so it does not trigger the requirement for a conditional use permit. What this project does require is a coastal development permit for new work in the coastal zone near an environmentally sensitive habitat, Laguna Channel, which is shown on the left side here, in that with all the green trees that we can see, and a development plan for the new non-residential square footage. So Laguna Channel runs along the western edge of the parcel, and development is proposed near it. The Creeks Department did confirm that the appropriate buffer for Laguna Channel is the existing road edge. One of the new buildings and construction staging is proposed on the channel side of that road. However, they are proposed in already disturbed areas with no anticipated biological impacts, as documented in the submitted biological report. The applicant also submitted an archaeological report that was accepted by the Historic Landmarks Commission on April 15th, 2020, and a condition of approval related to the unlikely discovery of archaeological artifacts is included in the draft conditions. The project was also reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review with positive comments, and they are required to return to the Architectural Board of Review with a landscape plan and their drawings for project design approval and final approval following approval of this coastal development permit and development plan. Staff finds that the project is consistent with all applicable development standards, but of special note in this case is parking. There's no specific parking requirement in Title 28 for a wastewater treatment center, and the project does propose to eliminate a few parking spaces at the southern edge of the lot. So therefore, staff asked the applicant to submit a parking demand study to confirm that the 69 on-site parking spaces are adequate for the project. And transportation staff also did an on-site parking study. Both transportation's review and the parking demand study confirm that the site is actually overparked as it is, and the loss of parking does not impact the site. Further, these new buildings are not meant for human habitation. They are electrical buildings. The only reason anybody's going to be in there is for maintenance. And so again, this is not an expansion of use or capacity. And so it's not a reason for more staff to be on site for triggering more parking. And in regards to the required development plan, the use falls under the government building category. So no formal growth management program square footage allocation is required, like small additions and things like that. But the findings are required since it is new non-residential square footage in the city. Staff finds that the project is compatible with all applicable coastal land use policies and policies outlined in the Coastal Act as described in the staff report, and recommends approval of the project. And that is the end of my presentation, and I'm here for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Swanson. If I could ask you to, or I'm going to ask Mr. Maldonado if he would join us by turning on his webcam and audio. Excellent.
Hello.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
So we have Will Russell, who is managing your presentation. If you want to please direct him, and you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Will. Do appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Ms. Kokenda. My name is Philip Maldonado. I'm a supervising engineer here with the City of Santa Barbara. I am here today to present the El Estero Water Resource Center Electrical Distribution Renewal Project. As stated, the site is located at 520 East Yananali Street. And as mentioned, staff supports discretionary approval of the project as currently proposed. Next slide, please. The presentation will review the required discretionary applications associated with the project description, how the project is consistent with the zoning ordinance, and the recommended discretionary approvals requested today. These approvals include the coastal development permit and development plan. I will note, as Stephanie mentioned, the design review was found consistent with the zoning ordinance by the Architectural Board of Review on September 9th, 2020. Next slide, please. The project will demolish 4 existing electrical buildings on this site. 5 new electrical buildings, a new waste gas flare, stormwater remediation infrastructure, and new utility infrastructure for the existing wastewater plant will be constructed. The project will still requires the approval of the coastal development permit and development plan. Next slide, please. As stated on this slide, the goal of the project is to eliminate the risk of failure at one of the city's most critical pieces of infrastructure. El Estero manages and treats all of the city's municipal wastewater and produces all of the city's recycled water. The electrical system touches all aspects of this process, and replacing the aging electrical distribution system, improving redundancy, and eliminating single points of failure will help ensure continued operation for years to come. El Estero is an activated sludge treatment plant permitted to ocean discharge 11 million gallons per day of secondary treated level water. Built in the 1970s, or I should say that the facility as it sits was primarily built in the 1970s. The plant includes preliminary, primary, and secondary treatment, along with chlorinating and dechlorinating facilities, ocean outfall, and solids handling unit processes. Tertiary treatment was added in 1989 and then replaced in 2014. There are still approximately $70 million in capital projects identified for implementation over the next 25 years at El Estero. And out of this, electrical power and distribution improvements is currently identified as the top priority based on overall risk and consequence of failure. The following slides will provide a bit more depth of overview on the facility location. Next slide, please. As previously stated, El Estero is located at 520 East Yananali, situated between Highway 101 to the north and the Pacific Ocean to the south. It resides in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. The vicinity map on the left highlights the site in yellow and shows the general location of the site within the city. The location map on the right shows these same yellow highlighted parcel boundaries and identifies Yananali Street to the north or upper portion of the map. To the west or left on the map is Garden Street, and to the east or right on the map is Cesar Chavez Street. It should also be noted that the nearest biologically sensitive areas to the site are Laguna Channel to the west and the El Estero Drainage Channel to the south, as indicated on the location map. Next slide, please. The renewed system will be constructed in parallel to the existing system. This will minimize the number of shutdowns during construction, which is beneficial for both personnel safety and maintaining a continuous process. To accomplish this, 5 new electrical buildings will be constructed, adding a net area of approximately 4,201 square feet. These new buildings are identified on the map in red. Power will be transferred to this new system after it's completed and tested, and then once operations are functioning on the new system, the existing electrical buildings can be demolished. The existing buildings are identified on this map in orange and remove a net area of approximately 2,463 square feet. A portion of the connective wiring will be routed through above ground conduit along the west side of the site, and a new waste gas flare will be installed with this project. Next slide, please. Now, this project is a renewal of the existing facilities and will not expand existing use. To ensure zoning ordinance consistency, the design effort included the production of an archaeological and biological assessment, a geotechnical report, and technical memorandums assessing both air quality and stormwater. Recommendations from these reports have been included in the applicant letter and incorporated into the presented design. Next slide, please. The Architectural Board of Review was presented this project on September 9th, 2020. The project was continued to the Planning Commission from this meeting and deemed consistent with the city's design guidelines. One commented request was to update the presented renderings of new buildings along the north road of the site to represent the anticipated view from Yananali Street. The following 3 slides will present these views. The buildings will be presented from right to left as shown on the plan that you see on this slide. So next slide, please. So the first view is of the 12 kilovolt power building. On the left is the existing view, and on the right is the rendered view. As shown, the new building profile will end below the height of the existing buildings and is well screened by the existing fence and landscaping. Next slide, please. The second view is of the new 4 kilovolt power building. This building is slightly more prominent, but remains below the sight lines of the existing building and is fairly well screened by the fence and landscaping. This view also shows the close proximity of these 2 new buildings on the northwest corner of this site. Next slide, please. This third and final view is of the new substation number 1 building. Once again, on the left is the existing view, and on the right is the rendered view. And you can see just the subtle change. The buildings themselves will be designed to match the existing architecture of the existing buildings. Next slide, please. Now, just as a confirmation, looking at the north road of this plan, the 3 buildings just presented were from right to left. First, the 12 kilovolt power building. Second, the 4 kilovolt power building, and third, the new substation 1. Now, along with these 3 buildings, there will be a new building on the west side of the site and one on the south side of the site. Once again, the new buildings are identified in red. The plan on this slide includes other areas of disturbance with this project. All of these areas are highlighted in green. The hatched area on the northwest corner of the site, or top left on the plan, has been identified for construction staging. Now, this area has been used for this purpose on previous construction projects on this site. Moving south or down the map from the northwest corner, a line is highlighted to show the location of above ground conduit. Finally, an area on the south side of the site is identified as the location of a new waste gas flare. This location is adjacent to the existing flare for the facility. This plan also identifies some of the key biological and stormwater best management practices being implemented with this project. On the north side of the site, the road will be regraded to capture stormwater runoff from this area and redirect it back to the treatment facility. Another stormwater BMP will be installed on the south side of the site to detain the initial storm runoff in this area. And on the west side of the site, a biological monitor will be on site during construction activities to confirm proper construction fencing placement and good practices to preserve the adjacent habitat. Next slide, please. As staff has recommended, this project is consistent with the required development plan findings for the addition of approximately 1,738 square feet of net new non-residential square footage required to renew the existing electrical distribution system. As highlighted, we have researched the site and surrounding area to ensure the design complies with Title 28, is consistent with sound community planning, will not have significant adverse impacts, and is consistent with the city traffic management strategy. Next slide, please. As with the development plan, this project is consistent with the California Coastal Act and the city's local coastal plan. The project is categorically exempt as an existing facility pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines. Next slide, please. And finally, as stated at the beginning, we are requesting discretionary approval for a coastal development permit and development plan for the needed project. And with that, next slide. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will do my best to answer them. So thank you very much, Ms. Fakinda.
Thank you, Mr. Maldonado. If you don't mind, if you can turn your webcam off and mute yourself, I'm going to ask you to rejoin us in just a moment. First, I need to open it up for public comment, and then I can go through questions. Thank you. So I am going to open this particular project up the public comment. If you wish to comment on this project and you're joining us, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. Your raised hand is indicated by a red arrow pointing down, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak. I currently don't see anybody. Ms. Gu, could you please confirm? I never received any correspondence, public comment on this particular project. Could you confirm that that's still the case?
No, we have not received any emails or written comment on this item. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, I still don't see any raised hands, so I'm going to go ahead and close public comment on this item and ask Ms. Swanson and Mr. Maldonado to please join us again. Let's see, Will, if you could take us, yeah, that's great. If I appreciate it. That's a great slide to bring us to. So I can say that I read the staff report, and this is a pretty bulky packet. We had the report from DUDEC for the biological resources and addressing the site, as well as the technical memo on stormwater management. So I've reviewed all of these. Let's see, Stephanie, you commented that the existing habitat buffer as determined by creeks is along the existing western street edge. And so I just want to, Will, if you could kind of point to that, and maybe Mr. Maldonado, can you just confirm with Will to show members of the public what edge that is?
It essentially follows this green line where construction fencing is proposed.
Correct.
And it goes up. It's a little tough to see, but the road loops all the way up to the top of the site close to Yananali, and that hatched area is where construction parking is proposed and construction storage. And so that's the area I was talking about, where there are things proposed within that buffer edge, but the Creeks Department looked at it, and that entire area is flat dirt. It's entirely disturbed already. There's no ESHA there. And so there's construction fencing along the very western edge of that to prevent anything from, say, going into Laguna Channel or anything like that. But there are no impacts anticipated, and that was reviewed as part of the biological report.
Correct.
Did you want to add anything, Mr. Maldonado, to that, or?
No, as mentioned in the presentation, as part of the bio report and in coordination with Creeks, there will be construction fencing placed at the edge of that ESHA to clearly delineate and identify any sensitive habitat so that it is avoided during construction activity.
I noticed when I was reading the technical memo that, and Mr. Maldonado, you also kind of explained this while I was doing my site visit, that for industrial sites, that, you know, the way that things are designed, it's not meant to spill out or like go onto the public right of way, but everything is kind of supposed to be self-contained. With that said, I noticed in the memo that there was one drain in the staging area that didn't seem to flow back to the site. And maybe I was just wondering if kind of what's anticipated to be located in the staging area, if any kind of, you know, liquids or things that could perhaps disturb, or if it's simply raw materials and not anything that could have an impact. If you could say a little bit more about that, please.
Yes, the staging is, I mean, as stated, this is an electrical project. So we will not be interacting with the wetted parts of the process. Any staging would be dry storage of equipment. And as noted actually on this plan, the north roadway is actually where the parking is allocated to be, at least initially, until that roadway is regraded.
I see. Okay, thank you for explaining the dry storage. And I also, so I did also watched the ABR meeting from September 8th of last year, and it's understood that you're proposing to remove the ornamental trees along kind of the northernmost edge of the project where those three new buildings, the electrical buildings, are going to be placed. And it's, they didn't have any issue with the mass bulk or scale of the project. But you will be obligated to go back with a landscape plan and to address screening along the way. That's one of the multiple conditions that are included as part of this project. Do you have any insight of where you might be placing those, or is it mostly to think about screening at this point?
It is predominantly screening, and if I remember correctly from the comments, that northwest corner where I was showing the site views from Yananali Street, they were a bit more open, and I believe that was kind of some of the suggestions that came from the architectural board. They were familiar with the site and were recommending saying maybe placing some additional screening in that area, just to make it more uniform.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with them, and they will that is in their purview, and they'll be addressing that when you go back. And again, as I mentioned, it's also part of the conditions. So for members of the public who are watching, that will be addressed at that time. You have mentioned that it's going to take approximately 36 months for the total construction, and I know that you're building these and using the existing ones on site, so there can be kind of a seamless transition to switch over. Can you talk a little bit more about what your sequence of demolition will be?
Well, as I was mentioning in the presentation, the entirety of the new system really does need to be built, tested for functionality, and then transferred over in a very meticulous process. And the reality is, because the system, the facility must remain functional continuously, no demolition will occur until this new system is completely functional and all operations are based on it. So from a sequence of demolition, it'll happen at the very end of that 36 months after the new system is built, tested, and is fully functional and operational.
Okay, thank you. And did you have to do any kind of floodplain measures for this particular site in terms of raising the buildings, or if there's any other design considerations, or the kind of the location of where they were sited?
We did get some initial comments back from staff for the floodplain management and meeting floodplain requirements. Basically, we just need to make sure that we are that 2 feet above the design flood level. And those base flood elevations are indicated on the plans themselves, and all of the new facilities will be designed at that 2 feet above that base flood elevation.
Okay. Well, again, it's a pretty, just having been on site, I also got a chance to see, could you point out the temporary storage area? I think it's on the western edge, and it should be, you're going to be demolishing one of the buildings and then creating a new,
yes,
this kind of bottom left hand. So could you tell me a little bit more about where you're thinking about putting that storage, the existing temporary storage?
The existing temporary storage. Are you talking about the staging area, or on the western side?
On the western side, kind of like bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah, exactly. On the map, the lower left-hand side of the map, you see the red box for a new building going in, right directly adjacent to an orange box just below it, that one being demolished. The red box will be placed where there is existing temporary storage buildings, and that is actually for the collections staff. They put some of their equipment in those storage units, and basically that the units themselves will be removed completely from the site, and the equipment that is stored inside will be redistributed around the different storage areas on site. So they will not be relocated. At least that's the current plan that we have.
Okay. All right. So those were my questions. And I can go ahead and move on. Thank you, Mr. Maldonado, and thank you, Ms. Swanson. I appreciate it. If you want to go ahead and turn your webcams off.
Thank you.
So again, I had the chance to go out on site. I've read all of the biological resources report, the technical memo on stormwater management for this project, and kind of poured through a lot of the recommendations. This is it's a significant project in terms of the benefits to the community in terms of the upgrades, the efficiency upgrades to the electrical distribution. And, but in terms of, it's pretty extensive in terms of where this project is located. So there are quite a few conditions added to this project. But having read the staff report, I can go ahead and make the following findings for this project. That for the coastal development permit, so I'm going to start with that. It is consistent with the policies of the California Coastal Act, again, as described in the staff report. And that this is a project that is, everything that is being proposed is already within existing development, so that it's on existing impervious surfaces. There's kind of no expansion of operations or capacity to the site. And it also, the proposed development is able to accommodate the parking demand that's going to be met on site as well for this industrial complex, having transportation staff reviewed it. And not being an issue with losing the existing parking spaces along the southern border. This project is also consistent with the applicable policies of the city's local coastal plan. You know, the electrical substations themselves and the new buildings are compatible with other industrial development that's currently on the site and in the area. There's not going to be any impacts to public views or public access to the coast. And this isn't in any kind of visually sensitive area. As I mentioned before, there are, because of the ESHA along the western edge and the proximity to Laguna Channel, there are a number of conditions within the staff report that will be added to this project in order to ensure the protection during construction, as well as just for the existence of the project, so that the applicant has submitted those technical reports, and that there shall be no damage to any biological or archaeological sensitive areas. And so all of those conditions will be incorporated in the project as part of my approval. Moving on to the development plan findings, this proposed development does comply with Title 28, the municipal code, in terms that all of the buildings comply with the height, parking setbacks, and the proposed development is also consistent with principles of sound community planning. The El Estero Wastewater Resource Center is the city's primary wastewater treatment plant, and that this proposed development is really supposed to be an upgrade to the existing facility and has been determined to be a priority based on need. So it will be a much needed improvement and bring in more efficiency. The proposed development will not have any significant adverse impact on the community's aesthetics or character, and that the size, bulk, and scale of the development is compatible with the neighborhood. I am going to add an extra condition. I know Mr. Maldonado, the applicant, mentioned the temporary storage and kind of how there will be redistribution on site. But I'm going to add a condition just to make sure that the relocation of any kind of temporary storage on site shall not be visible from the public right of way. So that's really would take care of it along Yananali. I don't necessarily want to see a permanent kind of temporary storage in that staging area. So I will add that small condition just to ensure that that will not be an issue. And then lastly, as part of the development plan findings, the proposed development is consistent with the policies of the city's traffic management strategy, so that there will be no impact. It won't be a project-specific traffic effect for this particular industrial site. So again, this is my approval with conditions, and that one small added condition. Mr. Maldonado, did you have any questions about the conditions that were added to this report? If you could come back on.
No, I did not. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I just want to announce that that is my decision. This is in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. And it may be appealed to the Planning Commission. So you have 10 days. Anybody wishing to appeal this project has 10 calendar days to submit that appeal. My decision could also be pulled from a member of the Planning Commission if they did not think that it was appropriate. So they too could pull the project for an appeal for additional review. But thank you so much to the applicant and to Ms. Swanson and to our team, Ms. Gu and Mr. Russell. And I am going to go ahead, and that is the last item for today. And so I can go ahead and close this hearing. Thanks again.